Hey, everyone. Uh, Welcome to Universal Soul Chronicles. My name is Essence, and thank you for clicking on this video and taking a listen. Today, this video is going to be about self-destruction or self-sabotage. Uh, this topic was requested by one of our subscribers, and I'll read you the comment. It says, "Can you address an issue, please? My question is, why do we self-destruct? We know the right thing to do, but instead we choose to keep conforming to old habits." That's a very good question. And I'm pretty sure, along with myself and you, Miss Maria, that everyone has wondered that same thing. They've asked themselves that same question. So, uh, let me give my disclaimer. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, any of that. Just want to share some of my experiences and my understanding of self-sabotage as it relates to my experiences, because I did a lot of that in my time. A lot. Like, I probably could have went to cosmetology school if I hadn't sabotaged myself, so to speak. But we'll get into that. So, self is self-explanatory. You know, when you say self, you're speaking of yourself, right? But sabotage. Well, let's do destruction, because she says self-destruct. And destruction is the action or process of causing so much damage to something that it no longer exists or cannot be repaired. Now, some people probably do self-destruct, like they get to the point of no return. But in most cases, we self-sabotage. And sabotage is deliberately destroying, damaging, or obstructing something. Now, in our case, that could be relationships, careers, habits, health habits, any of those. The question is, why do we do it? Do we do it intentionally? Sometimes we do. Sometimes we don't recognize that we self-sabotage, and we just, think this is something that happened, or this is something that we wanted to do. Let's see what self-sabotage is. Sabotage is when we actively or passively take steps to prevent ourselves from reaching our goals. It can affect our relationships, career goals, or our personal goals, such as losing weight. And we may also self-sabotage by not committing to relationships or being a poor friend, even when connection is what we truly want. So, what are the reasons why we would self-sabotage? One could be lack of self-worth or lack of confidence in ourselves. The other could be fear. Um, and another reason we self-sabotage is we try, and we don't try, but we do use the same coping mechanisms in every situation, which eventually builds a habit, and you become dependent on that. And you know once your body gets used to having a certain chemical, um, it's gonna crave it. And when you have those cravings, you normally give into it because you don't really realize what's happening. So, uh, This video, I'm gonna try not to make it too long, so I'm gonna have to break it up into parts. Right now, we're gonna deal with self-sabotage when it comes to health habits. Drinking, smoking, eating. Eating is a big one. A lot of people are addicted to food. They dependent on food. Uh, they probably wouldn't say that out loud, but a lot of people are addicted to food. And you really pretty much can be addicted to anything. Especially if you have an addictive nature. And by that, I mean, you're prone to it. It's something that runs in your family. If you got alcoholics in your family, or people who are strung out on drugs, or things like that. I mean, you really pretty much can get addicted to anything if it's something that makes you feel good, and especially if it's something to help you cope with a particular situation or an emotion, such as depression, sadness, loneliness, um, stress. Oh, that stress is a big one. So, we choose to do certain things. We choose to eat comfort food, or we choose to, we choose to drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, smoke weed. We choose to do these things. And sometimes it doesn't start out as a coping mechanism. Sometimes it's just, something that you like to do here and there. Uh, and then something happens and you have this emotion that you just is unbearable for you at the moment. So you turn to this thing that you like to do. Whether it's the comfort food, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, whatever it is, you turn to this thing. And as you go through life, that becomes like your go-to stimulant. And it becomes a habit, right? That particular behavior in itself of running to that stimuli can become an addiction. So you have what they call a behavioral addiction, right? Behavioral addiction is a form of addiction that involves a compulsion to engage in a rewarding, non-substance related behavior, despite any negative consequences to the person's physical, mental, social, or financial well-being. So you have your behavioral addiction, and then you have your substance addiction. But what is addiction really? And the definition I have for addiction is a brain disorder characterized by compulsive, uncontrolled, reactive, or irresistible engagement in rewarding stimuli. So, and this could be anything. It can be substance related, or it doesn't have to be. Some people cope by shopping, and they become addicted to shopping. Like, that's the first thing they want to do when something didn't go right for them. That's their way to feel better, or to brighten their day, so to speak. Whatever the case is, or whatever it may be, it elicits a sensory or behavioral response in an organism, which would be us. And it constitutes the basis for our behavior. And we have addictive behaviors, which, people who are drawn to negativity, or, it's just got to be something crazy, a chaotic going on for them to feel alive. Or even just continuously indulging in some things. Like, addictive behavior is a behavior that is both rewarding. That means it makes you feel good, you enjoy it, you're satisfied for the moment, and it's also reinforcing, which means you're gonna go back to it. So you'll use it, whether it's food, cigarettes, weed, alcohol, whatever, but you're always going to revert back to it. So even when you use it that one time, you're going to always revert back to it, and you become dependent on it after a while. It's like there's nothing else that you're going to desire aside from that. You become dependent on it. You feel like you have to have it in order for you to feel good, in order for you to do this. Some people feel like they have to drink when they go out in order for them to have fun, in order for them to be able to dance, to even get out of their shell, if you will. If they're like kind of shy, they may depend on alcohol to get them out of their comfort zone while they're out, so they can be able to dance and enjoy themselves and not worry about who's watching them dance or if they dancing right, and a lot of us become dependent on different things. So what is dependence? An adaptive state associated with withdrawal syndrome upon cessation of repeated exposure to a stimulus. So if you're somebody who eats comfort food when you're bored or you're depressed, stressed, whatever, and that's your go-to thing to cope with that, then you become dependent on it, and it's become a habit. So, and your body has gotten used to that thing. So at this, when you get to a certain point, you don't even have to think about, oh, you know what, maybe I should just go get me something to eat and just, No, you go right to that thing, and then in some instances you really don't want to do it, but you're being drawn to it, you're being pulled to it, because that's number one, what your subconscious has recorded that helps you to cope with that thing. So it's like on autopilot. It knows that that particular stimuli helps you cope with your loneliness or boredom or depression, sadness, stress, whatever. Uh, and when you get to the point of dependency, it can be hard, very hard to break away. I mean, you have to find something that's going to work for you, because the same method won't work for everybody. Um, of course, if you become dependent on something, you're addicted. Um, well, sometimes these habits start from an early age. So, like a lot of kids, when they get bored, say when they out of school for a week or two, they on break, or even during the summer. There's not much for them to do. If it's raining outside, they can't go outside and play, or if they friends are out of town for the summer, whatever, they always bored. They can have a whole gang of stuff to do, but they bored. You know what they do? Go straight to the kitchen, in the refrigerator. They in there every 30 minutes looking for something to eat, something to snack on, because they bored. They don't know what else to do. And a lot of us did that too as children. Either that, or we ate because we were stressed. Maybe, something happened with our parents and we weren't able to express ourselves. So we, just start eating. And we grow up and go through our lives like that. So when we get to a point of awareness where we just like, I gotta do something different. Because, I'm constantly, it seems like I'm always eating. And now I'm this, I weigh this amount, I'm this many pounds. And I need to do something. Well, you may tell yourself over and over again what you need to do, what you're going to do, when you're going to start, making New Year's resolutions, and this, that, and the third. But if you don't reprogram the initial the initial seed of it. If you don't uproot that seed that you sowed when you were young, you're gonna always revert back to that habit. So if you're one that likes food and you are um, eat when you're sad, or you eat when you're depressed, or you eat when you're bored, or you eat when you're stressed, then every time you experience those emotions, that's what you go to. And the moment that you decide that's not what you want to do anymore, your body, whether you say, even though you say to yourself it's not good for you, that you want to stop, um, your body is going to crave it, and it's going to fight the fact that you're not giving it what it wants. And because it does, eventually, if you don't have that willpower or that discipline, you give in. And sometimes it's just a matter of not believing that you can really do it. Especially like if you overweight, just the fact that you overweight will cause you just the fact that you're overweight will cause you to um, run to that very thing that you're trying to get away from. And that's because your body has gotten used to that, and your subconscious mind has recorded that that's is something that makes you feel good. So it's gonna make sure that even though if you went 2 weeks without doing it, or 3 weeks, uh, there's gonna be resistance there. And if you don't if you don't take care of the seed, the initial reason for you beginning that habit in the first place, you're gonna eventually revert back to that. Um, a lot of times we do things that we know we conform to those old habits is because it's easier. Really, honestly, and truly, it's easier just to keep doing what you're doing, because it takes a lot of work to change something that you've been doing for a long time, especially when it relates to things that we put in our body, because when our body get used to it, it looks for it. And believe it or not, um, it finds ways to manipulate and bring up these certain type emotions just so you can run to that thing so it can have it. I know a lot of people don't think that, but yeah, it happens. Uh, even with drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, you indulge in these things because you're trying to compensate for something. You're trying to fill some type of void, or you're um, what is it I want to say? You're just basically trying to either numb yourself, drown something out, um, or you just ignorant to the whole thing, and you just something that you like to do. Some people just like doing what they do. Some people just like drinking. It makes them feel good. And also another reason why we continue with these habits is because we think we have time. Let me tell you something. When we was in church hardcore, right? Um, and I bet you, let's say, probably 90%, yeah, about 90% of the people, no, take that back. Because, shoot, 90% of people in church still do what they do when they was in the world, so to speak. So let me back that up. There's people like me who wanted to get themselves together before they went to church. So for me, that meant, stop drinking, which I didn't drink a lot. Stop smoking, which I did do a lot. Um, there was some that, wanted to get themselves together and stop doing these things because, we don't want to play with God. We don't want to go to hell. Because that's what they used to tell us. We're going to go to hell. And then you have some people who just continued on doing what they was doing. Well, the people who did stop, a lot of times they stopped because they was ready and they wanted to, and they knew in the long run it was going to be good for them. But there are others who stopped simply because they didn't want to go to hell, and they thought it was a sin and that it was bad and all this and that. They didn't want their pastors to know, all that, whatever it is. Some of us just stopped because we wanted to so-called do the right thing. Because I wasn't ready to start smoking weed when I did 11 years ago. 12. 12 and a half years ago. I wasn't ready to stop, but I wanted to stop because, I wanted to start going to church, and I had tapped into some things, and I just wanted to see what kind of direction I would go in. And honestly, at the time, I didn't even see how I was going to stop. I didn't even see how I was going to stop smoking cigarettes. I started smoking cigarettes at 16, 17 when I first tried my first cigarette. I first tried my first joint when I was like 14. But I'm saying all that to say that some people stop just because they feel like they have to, but in their heart they really wasn't ready to. Then again, maybe I was ready to. Maybe I just wanted to try something different. In any event, I started back, and that's because I wanted to. Like, after I stopped going to church and found out that, a lot of the stuff that was being taught wasn't quite right, and the understanding of it was twisted. I guess I went through a kind of rebellious stage, if you will. Didn't think it would last for 3 years, but it did. And I learned a lot. So I don't think, smoking weed is bad. You have to be careful, because even though people say they don't be addicted, that you can't get addicted to weed, you become dependent on it. And if you're dependent, then you're addicted because you feel like you have to have it. And sometimes you will take $20, $30 out your bill money just so you can go get you a sack. That in itself should tell you that something is wrong, that, you're a little more dependent on it than you need to be. But anyways, yeah, some of us stop doing certain things out of fear. And some of us do certain things out of fear. There's also the fact of us wanting to do certain things, but we can't because the fear of the outcome or the fear of failure. And then sometimes it's just, like I said, really hard, because if you started this, if it was a defense mechanism thing and you started as a child, well, every circumstance or situation where you experience that emotion, you should not be applying that same coping mechanism. Because if you do, it becomes a behavioral addiction. On top of that, you become dependent on that stimuli, whether it be food, drugs, alcohol. You become dependent on it. And even though you may know the um, negative effects of it, like eating comfort food all the time. You know, at some point your metabolism slow down, you start gaining weight. You could eventually uh, have a heart attack, a stroke, because you're eating all the wrong foods and whatnot. Even though you know those things, you still indulge in it. That thing has gotten so strong that uh, you still run to it because your body is craving it, it desires it, and it's pulling you to that thing. Alcohol, same thing. You know, everybody has different reasons for why they do what they do. The key is to find the root of it. You need to get to the root of it, and that takes some soul searching, and that could be uh, a very I want to say draining process. I mean, it takes a lot, and I think that's one of the reasons. You know, I said just sticking with your old habits is easy because it takes a lot. You gotta focus on what you thinking, why you thinking it, why you make the decisions you make, what is your reason for picking this particular thing, why does it make you feel good. I mean, you gotta start asking yourself all kinds of questions. You have to get to the root of the problem to find out, you know, why it is that you chose that thing and how can you correct it. So um, in my case, sugar is still, I'm going to say sugar because sugar is still an issue for me. And I am really, really like pressing to get away from eating, especially processed sugars, because diabetes runs on both sides of my family. And I know doctors and stuff say uh, diabetes is hereditary. I beg to differ because I think it's more so of the eating habits that's hereditary, because whatever you grew up that you ate, that your mama and grandma and them fixed and ate it or made you eat it, even if you didn't want it, when you get it become an adult, you pretty much eat those same foods. And if you have that same blood type or body type or whatever, you're going to experience those same illnesses or whatever. So uh, you I want to get away from sugar. And it is like, I don't even know at what point, you know, that's something I work, you know, trying to figure out. Because I remember there was a time when I was younger that candy wasn't really my thing. But at some point, you know what, I think it was my first pregnancy. I think this, no, it wasn't even the first one, it was the second one. And I'll tell you why. Because uh, my second pregnancy, the doctor that I had was like, you know, you're not gaining much weight. You know, make sure you're eating your meals, this, that, and the third, right? And so I was like, you know, I don't really be hungry like that. My first pregnancy, I ain't really gained much weight. It was like that last month. Like, I just went up 10, 15 pounds. That was it. But I was real active during my second pregnancy, and they were telling me, you know, that I needed to eat more because I wasn't gaining enough weight. And so my thought process behind that was, well, you know what? Let me just start eating like some cakes and some cookies and stuff, see if that helped me gain weight. I don't think I turned back since then. Uh, yeah, I think that was the beginning of it. And of course, you know, it's good to have cake and ice cream and cookies. It just, your taste buds is just like, party over here, party over here. So if it tastes good, and you know, of course, for a few months I was doing that, and then after I had the baby, I was still eating like uh was pregnant, I still had those eating habits. I never lost those eating habits. So even to this day, and now it's even worse because she 18 now. So uh, you can imagine the shock and the withdrawals that this body is going to take me through just simply because I denied that sugar. So yeah, that's going to take, soon as I find a method, I'll share it with y'all. I know fasting is one way that helps, but it doesn't always work for everybody. But the way you think is another. Your self-talk, very important. Um, so yeah, you need to get to the root of why you chose that particular stimuli as a coping mechanism. And in the beginning, it's just a choice. We just choose to go to certain things. Some of us choose to run to food when we depressed, stressed, sad. Some of us choose to, some of us choose to run to alcohol. Some of us choose to smoke cigarettes, especially for stress. Some of us choose to smoke marijuana, and some people choose harder drugs. So some people choose shopping. Um, you have to figure out why you chose that. And you really need to weigh the pros and cons of that particular stimuli. You got to make yourself aware of how it affects you, um, and pay attention to your thought processes and your behaviors before and after. Because sometimes we could conjure up stuff in our own mind just so we'll have opportunity to go to that thing. So if you're planning on losing weight and you say, you know what, next week I'm going to start this kind of diet, or I'm going to do this, um, and you may be the person that, you may be a mom or a wife that fixes dinner for the whole family, and some of the things that you fix are not uh, on your diet plan, whatever. Your senses, let me tell you, your senses can get the best of you. Your sense of smell, your sense of sight, your sense of taste. But smell and sight mainly can get the best of you. So you could be in the kitchen cooking. You like, you know what, I'm going to have my salad. I'm going to have my quinoa. I'm about to make them this, fried chicken or whatever. And you could say, you know what, I need to taste this chicken to make sure I seasoned it well or whatever. And you taste it, and then you taste a little bit more. Oh, it's pretty good. Dang it. You know what, I shouldn't have even tasted it. I should have just let so-and-so taste it and let them tell me. Well, since I already did, I might as well just go on and eat this, and I'll start tomorrow. Same thing with fasting or doing the cleanse. You give in. You just give in, and then because you gave in, that's your excuse to have a couple more days to indulge in that old habit. That's self-sabotage. I know there was many a times we started fast and we forgot we was fasting and ate something, but you know why we forgot? Because it really wasn't our heart's desire at the time. It wasn't embedded in our heart, the fast. So we forget we on a fast and we eat a cracker, or we take a bite of something, and then when somebody be like, they catch you and they're like, what you doing? Ain't you fast? Oh shoot, I am fasting. I completely forgot. Oh well, since I already did that, I might as well start over tomorrow, and thus you can eat what you want. You see how that works? Man, it's crazy. You know what? I'm going to tell y'all this right quick. Hopefully I don't run out of time on this video. But let me tell you how habits can escalate. How the stimuli you choose can quickly become a habit, behavioral addiction, or any kind of addiction. How you can become dependent on it because your mind can play tricks on you. So hopefully, in me explaining this, you can identify with your own truth. Uh, you may be made aware of something that you may be experiencing that's subtly taking a hold of you, whether it be food or being around certain people or drugs, alcohol, whatever. So, of course, I had started back smoking weed about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and in the beginning it was just on the weekend, just mellow out, chill back, cause I ain't go nowhere at the time. I stayed in the house, and it went from that to, my days can be long. Dealing with the kids, cooking, cleaning throughout the day, going to work, dealing with people. So, and sometimes, I was up late and I was like, I need to start really getting to bed at a decent time. But I don't be sleepy. So, I figured, I'll just start taking me a few hits, lay down and chill till I fall asleep. Then it went from that to on the weekend, instead of me waiting till the evening, I might take a few hits when I wake up in the morning or sometime during the day. And then it went from that to, well, when I did it during the night before bed, I normally did it right before I got in the shower, as to kind of mask the smell, which never worked. Because some kids be like, what's that smell? But anyway, so I would take a few hits, get in the shower, and like I would have all these deep thoughts and things. That's why I really started that Shower Talk 101. That was the first video I did. But I would have I have like these deep conversations with myself. I'm checking myself, I'm correcting myself, telling myself, what I did wrong, and then I have all these kind of quotes, if you will, that just was blowing my own mind at the time. So I'm like, you know what? This is not bad. Uh, I'll be having some deep thoughts. Now, let me tell you something. Some people like to smoke and meditate, but it is nothing like just having meditation with a clear, sober mind. But anyway, so I was like, okay, yeah. So that was like something I would do, and I would have the talks with myself, have a pen and paper nearby so I could write some stuff down. I'm going to share it, at least I think, but shoot. Yeah. So that was like a check for me, like a positive. And then I noticed, when I do smoke, it would curb my appetite. Like, I would feel full at first. And then I went from feeling full to having the munchies. Initially, when I had the munchies, I was on it. I had to have my salty snack, my sweet snack, probably a little juice or something. Initially, but as I changed my eating habits, it went from that to maybe having a piece of fruit or some wheat thins, the ranch flavored, um, something a little more healthy. And I didn't have as much, because before, when I got the munchies, it was like I was a bottomless pit. Like I was just snacking. If I had a pack of cookies, that whole pack of cookies was about to be gone. I wasn't just going to eat 3 or 4. I was just going to sit there and watch whatever I was watching until that pack was gone. I mean, chips, whatever it was. And then I got to a point, as my eating habits changed and I became more disciplined, that I would have, I say I'm going to get 6 cookies, and that's going to be it. The chips, I always eat my whole bag of chips. Oh my goodness, because I love chips. I love potato chips. But I did develop some healthier eating habits, but that became another reason for me to smoke, because it curbed my appetite in the beginning. And I knew as long as I didn't go too far and eat too much whenever that munchie attack kicked in, that, I would be fine. Even now, people be asking, how you lose so much weight? And I don't be want to say it. Smoking weed. But I mean, it was a lot more than smoking weed, because I listened to a lot of affirmations. I know a lot of people probably think they don't work watching the same video or listen to the same thing over and over again, but it works for me because it was rewriting some stuff in the back of my mind, whether it felt like it or not. But anyway, so throughout the course of time, this stimuli, me smoking, I always found a reason for me to continue smoking, always. And so, one was, I could get real deep. Two, it was helping me to curb my appetite because I didn't feel hungry initially after I smoked. Um, what was another thing? Of course, it just helped me to relax. Or if I was upset about something and I just really didn't want to be upset, I just wanted to be all done with it, then, I would go take a couple of hits. But I became dependent on that thing. So much so that every time I got paid, that was the first thing. You know how when you in church, the first thing you take out your 10% for your tithes? I made sure I take out my 10%, maybe 20%, to get my herbs. And that was cool in the beginning because, you know, uh, I was able to. But when there came time when, I wasn't, my checks wasn't as big, or some unexpected things came up, I still made sure that I took that money out for that. Um, so that was a negative on my checklist. Um, Now, why is that? Because now I've been doing it long enough that my body has got accustomed to the THC chemical. I've got accustomed to it. So now I feel like I have to have it. Like I need it to function. And some people like that. Like they literally need it to function. Um, but anyway, I gotta hurry up because I think this thing is gonna run out, and I have yet to learn how to edit. um, but yeah, then as I grow and mature in my spiritual journey, I came to realize that where I want to go, I can't go doing this on a regular basis. It's going to hinder my growth. It's going to hinder my elevation spiritually. And so I think that was the biggest thing. Also, smoking, with me being a Gemini and the throat chakra being my power chakra, uh, I came to know that smoking can cause blockage there, and that's like one of the biggest things for me is I had a problem expressing myself verbally, but have me write something down. I'll be writing all day. I can write you a book. So I think sometimes to break those old habits, along with some uh, um, unprogramming and reprogramming of your subconscious mind, and meditation, fasting, uh, building your self-confidence and believing you can do it. Um, you can, and you have to have that strong desire. It has to be something that you want more than that thing. And I think mine was uh, for me to grow spiritually, to elevate, to raise my vibrations, and then also to be able to open up and help people, because I'm not a real transparent, I'm not a real transparent person, but I'm becoming to be a transparent person, only because I want people to listen and think about their own lives and their own experiences and decipher where they may have made a wrong turn, or how they can correct it, or what was the root cause of them beginning those very habits, or things like that. So uh, understand me when I share some of my stories and my experiences. Is not really because I want my business out there, but I want to be able to help somebody else discover their own truth. So once again, we conform to our old habits because number one, it's easier. Number two, there's fear of who will we be if we didn't do this. Three, it's just like a mental bondage. It can be. Um, Four, we lack self-worth and confidence. We probably didn't have affirmations growing up, and because we didn't, we felt some type of way. We used food as coping mechanism, and then maybe when we got older, it could have been alcohol, drugs, or nicotine. Cigarettes. And speaking to cigarettes, I know some people, they just smoke. Some people, they don't inhale. Even though you may not inhale, your cheeks, the inside of your mouth is still absorbing that smoke and that nicotine, which still gets in your system, which means your body is still going to be looking for that little bit that seeps your uh, into your body through your mouth. Uh, so yeah, your body becomes dependent on just that little bit, even though you don't inhale and take the smoke into your lungs, which, believe it or not, some still gets down in there even though you don't actively inhale. It's there. So uh, a lot of it is because it's just a habit. Our bodies crave it, and we don't know how to change it. But you really have to study yourself and be aware of the times that you really, really are wanting this, and find a different, more healthy coping mechanism. And that's pretty much all I have as far as health habits. As I continue studying and monitor my own thoughts and habits, I'll be taking notes, and we may revisit this later on in the future, because I know as I elevate in my vibration, that my understanding about a lot of it may change. And then, of course, I will gladly share with you guys. But I do thank you for listening if you made it to the end. Even if you didn't make it to the end, thank you again for clicking. And if you would like to hear more, please do hit the subscribe button. And also, don't forget to click on the bell so you can receive notifications when I do upload a new video. I have really enjoyed sitting here just talking and sharing this information with you all. Um, it Y'all don't even know. We gonna continue on with part 2 of self-sabotage, because I really do have some things I want to share with you all in regards to career and relationships, because relationships is a big one for me. So I think that's the next one that we're gonna do. In the meantime, Peace, love, and light. You all enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your night. I will be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.